AITA for refusing to take care of her disabled aunt because she made me eat the ground when I was a child. When I was 10, my aunt grabbed me by the hair, dragged me outside, and shoved me to the ground. "Eat it," she said. I was crying too hard to respond, so she pushed my face into the dirt. I said, "Eat it." I don't know how much dirt I swallowed that day, but I remember the taste of it, dry, bitter, full of tiny rocks that hurt my teeth. It got stuck in my throat, and I gagged, but she didn't let go until I forced it down. My stomach hurt for days. Now, she's sick and bedridden, and people are telling me I should take care of her. They say she's family. They say it's the right thing to do, but all I can think about is the taste of dirt in my mouth. I didn't always hate my aunt. When my parents died in a car accident, I was too young to understand what was happening. One day, they were there, and the next, I was being told that I had to live somewhere else. There were no grandparents or other relatives to take me in. Just my aunt. She wasn't poor, but she wasn't well off either, somewhere below middle class, but comfortable. At first, I thought maybe things would be okay. She had a house. She had food. I wouldn't be homeless. But I learned pretty quickly that she didn't actually want me there. She never said it directly, but I could feel it in every sigh, every glare, every muttered complaint about how much extra work she had to do now. At first, she just ignored me. She left food on the counter but didn't eat with me. She never asked about my day or how I was feeling. If I got sick, she'd throw some medicine on the table and tell me to deal with it. I learned not to ask for anything then. The punishment started. She got mad over every little thing. If I forgot to put my shoes away, she'd scream at me. If I left a light on, she'd take the bulb out of my room. If I took too long in the bathroom, she'd bang on the door and call me useless. But the worst was when she thought I was being lazy or disobedient. That's when she got creative. The first time she made me eat dirt, I was 8. I had been playing outside and didn't hear her calling me. When I finally ran inside, she was already waiting at the door. She grabbed my arm so tightly it hurt and dragged me back out before I could say anything. She was furious. She shoved me down onto the ground, and before I could even react, she was telling me to eat the dirt. At first, I thought she was just trying to scare me, but when I hesitated, she pushed my face into the ground. My mouth was open from crying, and suddenly, I was choking on dust and tiny bits of rock. The grit stuck to my teeth, and the dry earth made it hard to swallow. I gagged and coughed, but she didn't let go until I had swallowed enough to satisfy her. That became a regular punishment. If I talked back, forgot to do a chore, or even hesitated when she gave me an order, she would drag me outside and force me to eat the ground. Sometimes, if it had just rained, she made me dig my hands into the mud and smear it all over my face before licking it off my fingers. She called me filthy, lazy, and useless. She said I needed to learn my place. It wasn't just the dirt. She had other ways of punishing me, too. If my homework wasn't finished by the time she checked, she would take everything out of my room, my blankets, my pillows, anything I had, and leave me with nothing but the floor to sleep on. I remember entire nights spent curled up in an empty room, freezing because she had taken my blanket away over a math problem I had gotten wrong. I learned not to cry. Crying only made her angrier. I learned to say as little as possible and do everything exactly how she wanted. But it was never enough. No matter how hard I tried, there was always something she could find to punish me for at night. I used to imagine being anywhere else. Even an orphanage seemed better than living with her. At least in an orphanage, I thought, there would be other kids, people who might care. Maybe someone would look out for me. But no one came to help. No one knew what she was doing to me, and if they did, they didn't care. I was completely alone with her, and I had no choice but to endure it. The older I got, the worse it became. By the time I was 10, I had stopped expecting kindness from her. I knew she didn't see me as a child who had lost everything, just a burden she never wanted in the first place. But even knowing that didn't make it easier. Her punishments became more severe as I got older. The dirt eating continued, but now there were other things. If I didn't clean the house well enough, she would take away my food for the day. If I spoke too much, she would lock me in my room for hours. If I ever talked back, she would grab my wrist so hard it bruised and remind me that I had nowhere else to go. There was one time when I forgot to do a math worksheet. I wasn't being lazy, I had just genuinely lost track of time. But to her, that was an excuse. She stormed into my room, took every single thing I owned, and left me with nothing but an empty floor. She even took my blanket and pillow, saying that if I had time to be irresponsible, I didn't deserve comfort. I remember sitting in that empty room, my stomach growling because she had also decided I didn't need dinner that night. I told myself it was temporary. That one day, I'd be old enough to leave, and she wouldn't have control over me anymore. But at the time, that future felt impossibly far away. I was stuck in a cycle where every mistake, no matter how small, had consequences. If I tried to be perfect, she would still find a reason to punish me. I started thinking that maybe she just enjoyed seeing me suffer. By the time I was 12, I stopped thinking of her as family. Families were supposed to take care of each other. Families didn't shove your face into the ground and laugh while you choked on dirt. Families didn't treat you like a stray dog they regretted bringing. I had no one else, but I refused to let her break me. Even when she made me go to bed hungry, even when she made me scrub the floors for hours, even when she told me I was worthless, I held on to one thought. I would leave as soon as I could and IDD ran away when I was 16. By that point, I had been planning it for years. I knew that if I stayed, I would never have a real life. I would never be anything more than a burden to her, something she tolerated because she had to. I had no dreams, no hopes, nothing to look forward to, just the certainty that every single day would be more of the same. I couldn't live like that anymore. I had no grand escape plan, no elaborate scheme. I just waited until the right moment. She had been in a bad mood that day, angry about something I had no control over. She barely spoke to me during dinner, just glared at me like I was the reason her life was miserable. I went in my room as usual, pretending nothing was different. I waited until she went to bed, listening for the sound of her snoring, and then I grabbed my bag, the small backpack I had been secretly packing for weeks, and I walked out the front door. I didn't look back. At first, I had nowhere to go. I spent my first night on a park bench, my hoodie pulled tight around me to stay warm. The next night, I found an empty building where I could hide for a few hours. I knew I couldn't keep living like that, so I started looking for work. It was hard. I was underage, I had no real experience, and I didn't trust anyone. But I found people who were willing to pay cash for small jobs, cleaning, carrying boxes, anything that needed to be done. It wasn't much, but it was enough to buy food and keep me going. I met people along the way who helped me. A girl I worked with let me crash on her couch for a while. An older couple who owned a small diner let me work in the kitchen in exchange for meals. Little by little, I built a life for myself. It wasn't easy, but it was mine. The hardest part wasn't the struggle. It wasn't the nights when I didn't know where I would sleep, or the days when my stomach growled because I hadn't eaten enough. It was undoing the years of conditioning. It took me a long time to stop flinching when someone raised their voice. To believe that I deserved to eat even when I made a mistake. To understand that I wasn't useless or lazy or worthless, no matter how many times she had told me I was. By the time I turned 18, I had a job that paid enough for me to rent a small apartment. It wasn't anything special, just a tiny place with secondhand furniture, but it was mine. No one could take it away from me. No one could decide if I was allowed to sleep in my own bed. No one could punish me for something ridiculous like forgetting to wipe the counter properly. Now, I'm 21. I live in a different city, far away from the house I grew up in. I have a steady job. I have a boyfriend who treats me well. I have friends. I have a life that is completely separate from the nightmare of my childhood. For 5 years, I didn't speak to her. I didn't tell her where I was, and she never tried to find me. As far as I was concerned, she stopped existing the day I walked out of that house. But now, suddenly, she needs me. A few weeks ago, I got a call from a relative I barely remember. She told me my aunt was sick, something serious, though she didn't go into detail. Apparently, my aunt is old, bedridden, and unable to take care of herself. The relative told me there was no one else. She said that since I was the only family my aunt had left, I needed to step up and take care of her. I laughed. Actually laughed. Not because I thought it was funny, but because of how absurd it was. This woman, the one who spent years making my life hell, now expected me to drop everything and be there for her. The relative didn't seem to care about what had happened in the past. She just kept repeating the same things. Family takes care of each other. It's the right thing to do. My aunt has no one else. That last part almost made me feel something. Almost. But then I remembered all the nights I spent curled up on a cold, empty floor because she had decided I didn't deserve a blanket. I remembered the taste of dirt in my mouth, the way it scratched against my teeth and made my stomach hurt for days. I remembered being hungry, scared, and alone. She had me for years, and she didn't care about me. Not once. She didn't care when I was cold, when I was hungry, when I was miserable. She only cared that I obeyed her. And now I'm supposed to drop everything to help her just because she's old and sick. I told the relative no. She was shocked, like the idea of me refusing was unthinkable. She said I was being cruel. That no matter what happened before, my aunt was still my family. I just repeated my answer. No. I'm not doing it. Since then, I've been getting messages from people I haven't spoken to in years. Some are distant family members, some are people who used to know my aunt. They all say the same things. That she's sick, that she's suffering, that I need to let go of the past and do the right thing. I haven't responded to any of them. Because as far as I'm concerned, she made her choices. And now she can live with them. The messages haven't stopped. Every few days, someone else reaches out. Some try to guilt me, saying that no matter what happened, she raised me and I owe her for that. Others try to appeal to my sense of morality, telling me that I should be the bigger person and put the past behind me. A few have been outright hostile, calling me selfish and ungrateful. Ungrateful, that word alone almost made me respond. I wanted to ask them, what exactly should I be grateful for? The nights I spent hungry because she decided I didn't deserve to eat? The times she forced me to choke down dirt as punishment? The years of isolation, neglect, and cruelty? She didn't raise me. She didn't take care of me. She kept me alive, barely, but only because she had to. If she could have gotten rid of me, she would have. I don't think these people actually care about her. I think they just want to feel like they did their part by dumping the responsibility onto someone else. None of them are willing to take care of her themselves, yet they act like I'm the monster for refusing. I don't feel guilty. I don't feel conflicted. But I do feel angry that they're even asking this of me, angry that after all these years, she still has the power to disrupt my life. I built something good for myself. I left her behind, and now she's being dragged back into my world like a ghost that refuses to stay buried. I thought that once I left, she could never hurt me again. But the fact that people are still trying to make me responsible for her makes my blood boil. She made her choices. She didn't care what happened to me. Why should I care what happens to her? I know some people will say I'm heartless, that no matter what happened in the past, I should help because she's old, sick, and alone. Maybe if I told them everything, they would understand. But I doubt it. People love to preach about forgiveness when they weren't the ones who had to survive it. The truth is, I don't owe her anything. Not my time, not my energy, not even a second thought. She had years to be a decent human being to me, and she chose not to. That's on her. She made sure I grew up knowing I wasn't wanted. She punished me for existing. She treated me like nothing. So now, when she's at her lowest, when she needs someone to care, why should I be the one to step up? Why should I give her the kindness she never once gave me? I don't feel guilty about my decision. If anything, I feel relieved knowing that I'll never see her again. But part of me wonders, should I feel bad? Should I feel something? Everyone keeps telling me I should, but I don't. So, I guess that's why I'm here. Am I the asshole for refusing to take care of the woman who made me eat dirt as a child?